You see that big green blob? Well, that actually is an aphid or greenfly. And that gives you an idea of the size of the little creatures we're talking about. They're really barely visible to the eye. They're specks, but we're going to find out just how interesting those little specks are. Lots of people believe that the soil is a living entity, not quite an organism, not quite an ecosystem, but somehow a coherent living being. And they then tend to think that consists of worms, made famous by Charles Darwin obviously, and fungi, because they somehow get quite a lot of the publicity. But while we're looking at this, that little creature in front of you moving around barely gets a mention at all. And yet, this group of creatures, somewhere between the worms and the fungi, actually constitute probably the most important link in the ecosystems, because they do two functions. Mainly, they live in relationship to plants and trees. You see that big green blob? Well, that actually is an aphid or greenfly, and that gives you an idea. It is estimated by the Countryside Survey of 2007 that there are 12 quadrillion of these little specks of soil animals in the United Kingdom. 12 quadrillion. That is equal to 12,000 trillion of these little creatures. And I'm going to take you on a little journey to find out more about these little specks of life under our feet. Because I do find it difficult when we look up at the stars and somebody says there are billions of stars in this galaxy and there are billions of galaxies. And every star they go to, the first question they ask is there life on this planet? And I think, oh, I do wish you'd just look under your feet and see the life which is going on, which most people haven't got a clue about. We just tracked something called a springtail along there. It's come back into view. That's a springtail called a snow flea. Gastrotura, I think, is the correct Latin name. But what is coming into view as well are these brown creatures, and they're mites, and they're oribatid mites. And these here are the springtails, and there were the oribatid mites. And those two groups of creatures make up the vast majority of the creatures in the soil. The other main group are the nematodes, which are unsegmented creatures with virtually no form at all. But the nematodes, these springtails, there's another one, and the mites, you can see the little brown mite there just above the springtail, and there's a dark brown mite at the bottom. They make up the vast majority of soil animals. And as you can see, related to the size of that aphid, they're quite small. And when we see ants, ground beetles, centipedes dashing about the garden, they'll be eating these creatures. They are what keeps them going. So when we see the birds eating the beetles, it's these little creatures which are actually keeping that whole ecosystem going. Yet most of us haven't got a clue about it. Virtually nobody could name one of these creatures. And what I'm bringing to you now is, I can't believe it, bringing you to life, these little creatures, in a way which I don't think anybody's ever seen before. To go back 40 years, I did my PhD on the effects of herbicides on soil animals. I counted over 500,000 of these species and creatures, but they were always dead. So to see them living like they are now and visible to you is utterly amazing, and I'm not sure how many people have seen this before. And I certainly say what I'm up to now is only scratching the surface. Those are Oribatids, by the way. There's a springtail again. You can see the